Across the vast and reaching landscape of the United States of America are stories written in ink and stories written in blood. To understand the American experience is to confront the shadows that loom behind the promise of liberty and the pursuit of happiness. We often view history as a steady march of progress, yet there are moments when that progress was halted by inexplicable violence. Massacres have shaped the borders, the laws, and the very psyche of the individual states that make up this union. From the colonial frontier to the modern urban center, these events have left scars that refuse to fade. In this exploration, we delve into the 10 states that have statistically recorded the highest numbers of massacres throughout their history, examining the dark legacies that have fundamentally altered their social and political landscapes. We begin our journey in the state of Colorado, ranking 10th on our list. Colorado is a land of breathtaking peaks and gold rush dreams, but its history is anchored by the weight of the Sand Creek Massacre of 1864. In the cold November air, a volunteer cavalry regiment under the command of Colonel John Chivington attacked a village of peaceful Cheyenne and Arapaho people. Despite a white flag of truce being raised, over 200 individuals, mostly women, children, and the elderly, were slaughtered. This event fundamentally broke the trust between the indigenous nations and the federal government, leading to decades of retaliatory warfare. In more contemporary times, Colorado became the epicenter of a new kind of tragedy. The Columbine High School Massacre in 1999 redefined the American educational experience, introducing an era of school security and lockdown drills that persists to this day. Later, the Aurora Theater shooting in 2012 further cemented Colorado as a state grappling with the intersection of mental health and public safety. These events have forced Colorado to become a leader in legislative debates regarding firearms and community mental health resources, transforming a once rugged frontier into a battleground for modern social reform. Moving east, we find the state of Virginia at number 9. Virginia is often called the mother of presidents, a place of deep colonial roots and revolutionary fervor. However, those roots are also buried in the soil of the Nat Turner Rebellion of 1831. In Southampton County, Turner led a group of enslaved individuals in a calculated uprising that resulted in the deaths of over 55 white residents. The scale of the violence sent shockwaves through the American South, leading to the passage of even more restrictive slave codes and ending any serious debate about abolition within Virginia for another generation. Fast forward to 2007, and the state was once again the focus of national mourning during the Virginia Tech massacre. At the time, it was the deadliest shooting by a single gunman in United States history, claiming 32 lives. The impact on Virginia was profound, leading to a total overhaul of the state's mental health evaluation system and campus security protocols. The tragedy at Virginia Tech remains a defining moment in the state's modern history, illustrating how a single day of violence can reshape university life across the entire country. 8th on our list is the state of Michigan. Known for its industrial might and the birth of the American middle class, Michigan's history of mass violence is often tied to the tensions of rapid urbanization and labor struggles. In 1927, the town of Bath witnessed the deadliest act of mass murder in a school setting in American history. A disgruntled school board member, Andrew Kehoe, detonated explosives at the Bath Consolidated School, killing 44 people, 38 of whom were children. The Bath school disaster remains a chilling reminder that mass casualty events are not a modern invention. The state also weathered the 1967 Detroit Rebellion, where civil unrest and police action led to 43 deaths and thousands of injuries. This event fundamentally altered the demographics of the region. accelerating the flight of the middle class to the suburbs and leaving scars on the city of Detroit that are only now beginning to heal. Michigan's history shows a state constantly negotiating the pressures of economic change and the volatile nature of community relations. Ninth place brings us to the state of Georgia. As a pillar of the Deep South, Georgia's history is inextricably linked to the Reconstruction era and the violent resistance to civil rights. The Atlanta race riot of 1906 stands as a dark milestone, where white mobs, fueled by false, sensationalized news reports, attacked black residents over several days. The death toll remains disputed, but is estimated to be dozens, with hundreds more injured. This event led to a long period of racial segregation and economic disenfranchisement that defined Atlanta for the first half of the 20th century. More recently, in 2021, the Atlanta spa shootings highlighted a rising tide of violence against Asian American communities. These events have pushed Georgia into a period of intense soul-searching, forcing the state to confront its historical racism while navigating its new role as a diverse and growing economic powerhouse in the New South. The legislative responses to these massacres have often been slow, but the social impact has galvanized a new generation of activists within the state. 6 on our list is Arizona, a state of desert beauty and late territorial expansion. Arizona's history of massacres is often tied to the bloody transition from the Wild West to the modern era. The Bisbee Massacre of 1883, though smaller in scale than some, represented the lawlessness of the mining frontier. However, it was the Camp Grant Massacre of 1871 that truly stained the state's history. A mob of Tucson citizens and O'odham warriors attacked a peaceful camp of Aravaipa Apache, killing over 100 people, mostly women and children. This event demonstrated the extreme animosity between settlers and indigenous peoples during the Apache Wars. In the modern era, the 2011 Tucson shooting, which targeted Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, left 6 dead and 15 wounded. This shocked the nation and the state, leading to a national conversation about political rhetoric and gun laws. Arizona's history is a testament to the harsh realities of the frontier and the lingering impact of territorial disputes on modern political discourse. Entering the top 5, we find Pennsylvania. As the birthplace of American democracy, Pennsylvania has a history that is surprisingly marked by mass violence. From the Conestoga Massacre in 1763, where the Paxton Boys murdered peaceful Susquehannock people, to the Latimer Massacre of 1897, where 19 striking miners were shot by a sheriff's posse, Pennsylvania's violence has often been directed at the marginalized. Perhaps the most chilling modern example is the Tree of Life Synagogue shooting in 2018. 11 congregants were murdered in what was the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in United States history. This event shattered the sense of safety in religious spaces and forced Pennsylvania to confront the rising tide of anti-Semitism. The state's history reflects a constant struggle between its Quaker roots of peace and the harsh realities of industrial conflict and religious intolerance. Each massacre in Pennsylvania has led to a hardening of community resolve, but also a lingering sense of vulnerability. 4th on the list is New York. As the gateway to the American dream, New York's history of mass violence is often large-scale and urban. The New York City draft riots of 1863 remain the deadliest civil insurrection in American history aside from the Civil War itself. Over 4 days, white mobs, many of them Irish immigrants, attacked black residents and government buildings, resulting in an estimated death toll of over 120 people. The riots forced a change in the way the city was policed and highlighted the deep racial and class fissures in the North. In the modern era, the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001, though often classified separately, represent the largest mass casualty event on American soil. The loss of nearly 3,000 lives on that day fundamentally changed New York and the world. The Buffalo supermarket shooting in 2022 reminded the state that the ghosts of racial violence have not been exorcised. New York's response to these events has often been the implementation of some of the strictest security and firearm regulations in the country, reflecting a state that is perpetually on high alert. Third on our list is the state of Florida. Florida's history is a complex weave of indigenous displacement, racial violence, and modern mass shootings. The Rosewood Massacre of 1923 stands as one of the most egregious examples of racial cleansing in American history. An entire black town was burned to the ground by a white mob, and its residents were hunted through the swamps. For decades, this history was suppressed until the state legislature finally offered reparations and an official apology in the 1990s. In the 21st century, Florida has been haunted by two of the deadliest mass shootings in recent history. The Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016, which claimed 49 lives, and the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in 2018, which took 17 lives. These events have left Florida deeply divided between those calling for stricter gun control and those clinging to traditional Second Amendment rights. The impact on Florida's youth has been particularly profound, sparking a national movement for school safety and legislative change led by the survivors of Parkland. Second on our list is the state of California. As the most populous state, the sheer volume of massacres in California is staggering. Its history begins with the California genocide during the mid-19th century, where state-sanctioned militias murdered thousands of indigenous people during the gold rush. Events like the Bloody Island Massacre of 1850 saw the systematic killing of Pomo people by the United States Army. In the 20th century, California became the backdrop for high-profile mass violence, ranging from the Manson family murders to the San Isidro McDonald's Massacre of 1984, where 21 people were killed. More recently, the Monterey Park shooting and the Half Moon Bay shooting in 2023 demonstrate that no community is immune. California's history of massacres has led to the development of the nation's most comprehensive set of gun laws and mental health initiatives. The state exists in a constant state of reaction to the next potential tragedy. Its diverse population often united only by the shared grief of these recurring events. Finally, we arrive at the state with the highest number of recorded massacres and mass casualty events in American history. Texas. The history of Texas is a history of conflict. From the revolution against Mexico to the bloody struggles on the frontier, violence is woven into the identity of the Lone Star State. The Goliad Massacre of 1836, where over 300 Texian prisoners were executed by the Mexican army, helped fuel the drive for independence. Later, the Slocum Massacre of 1910 saw the targeted killing of dozens of black residents in East Texas, an event that was largely omitted from history books for a century. In the modern era, Texas has seen an unprecedented frequency of mass shootings. From the University of Texas Tower shooting in 1966 to the Sutherland Springs church shooting, the El Paso Walmart shooting, and the heartbreaking tragedy at Robb Elementary in Uvalde in 2022. These events have deeply scarred the Texas psyche. Each time, the state has been a central theater in the national debate over gun rights versus public safety. The impact on Texas has been a paradox. It remains a state fiercely protective of its armed heritage, while simultaneously mourning the repeated loss of its children and citizens in the very places they should feel safest. As we look back at these 10 states, a pattern emerges. Massacres are not merely isolated incidents of madness. They are often the eruptions of deep-seated societal tensions. Whether it is the displacement of indigenous peoples, the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow, labor disputes, or the modern crisis of mental health and firearm accessibility, these events reveal the fractures in the American experiment. The state of Colorado was transformed from a mining frontier into a laboratory for school safety. Virginia was forced to confront the gaps in its mental health system. Michigan learned the devastating potential of domestic terrorism long before the term was common. Georgia and Florida have had to grapple with the long shadows of racial cleansing that they tried to forget. Pennsylvania and New York have seen their most sacred and iconic spaces turned into sites of mourning. Arizona and California have had to reconcile their violent frontier origins with their modern urban realities. And Texas continues to stand at the heart of an American struggle to balance individual liberty with the collective right to survival. The effect of these massacres on the states themselves is immeasurable. There is the economic cost, the loss of life, and the physical destruction of property. But the deeper impact is psychological. It is the loss of a sense of security in a classroom, a grocery store, or a house of worship. It is the way a town's name becomes forever synonymous with a date of tragedy. These states carry the weight of names like Sand Creek, Bath, Rosewood, and Uvalde. Yet, in the wake of such darkness, there is also the story of resilience. In every state mentioned, tragedies have been followed by movements for change. Survivors have become advocates, and communities have come together to rebuild what was shattered. The history of massacres in America is a difficult one to tell, and even harder to hear. But to ignore these stories is to ignore the reality of how these 50 states were forged. By remembering the victims and understanding the catalysts of these events, we gain a clearer picture of the work that remains to be done. The United States is a land of great beauty and profound opportunity, but its history reminds us that peace is a fragile thing, requiring constant vigilance and a willingness to confront the darkest chapters of our shared past. As we move forward, these 10 states serve as reminders that the history we choose to remember or forget will ultimately dictate the future we build for the generations to come. Through education, policy change, and a commitment to understanding the roots of violence, the hope remains that the list of such tragedies will one day cease to grow, and the bloodstains on the map of America will finally be allowed to heal. This is the narrative of a nation in transition, a country defined not just by its triumphs, but by its ability to endure and learn from its most painful moments. The echoes of the past still ring through the valleys of the Rockies, the corridors of southern cities, and the streets of New York, calling for a future where such massacres are no longer a part of the American story.